There are many that paint the workplace as a battlefield, a place where it's every man or woman for themselves. Individuals who believe that it is dog eat dog in the climb up the career ladder and fight tooth and nail through stress, exhaustion, possible manipulation and conniving to try to win and keep power and position. Experts say the problem is not from external factors, but from within, stemming from a deep-rooted selfish need to gain and keep control, with little regard for the organization you work for or your team. Last week, life coach Lily Wilsenach gave us the tools to effectively communicate a difficult matter with a second party and bring about the best possible outcome. This week, she helps us change the way we speak to ourselves to improve the internal self-talk that governs our attitude, performance, and correspondingly, the health of the greater organizational structure, helping us see that we at times run our organizations or make decisions based on baseless fears. Clinging and resisting are two ways in which we can react to different situations. Two ways in which fear can rear its ugly head within us and produce counterproductive behaviors that weaken the interlinked chain that is a work team. Lily begins by explaining these two concepts and how they could come into play within the work environment. According to you, there are two polar opposite ways in which people manifest their fear. Could you please tell us about these two concepts?
Well, like you said, they're like two sides of a coin. The one is clinging, and clinging is really grabbing onto something, holding onto something. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling of, I've held on so tightly, my hands are bleeding. And it's a painful experience. For instance, if I have a certain position at work that I want to cling to, I might want to control the people around me, to not invade my space because I'd like to hold on to this position. And I assume in my mind that that is the best place for me. It is not trusting that whatever happens is good for me. It is feeling that I'm anxious about this. It can consume a lot of headspace. What am I going to do to safeguard this position? What am I going to do to hold on to it? What am I going to do to keep others from this position? And so it really becomes a place where my whole life revolves around managing what I'm trying to hold on to. And that can be very, very painful for us.
Your second concept is resistance, the other side of the coin. Could you please explain that one?
Resistance is really also based in fear, like you said, and it is really trying to get away from, stopping something from happening. It is, for instance, when we are moving from writing things down on a piece of paper to an automated computer system, and you find that people don't want to leave their old ways behind and change. Change is a huge factor when talking about resistance. When I don't want to move to another position because this is comfortable for me. The big comfort zone comes into play when we speak about resisting. Resisting, in my mind, is almost like falling into a river, and it moves fast. And when you are resisting and you put out your hands and you don't want to go down this river, you hurt yourself, you scratch yourself, you get broken arms and broken legs when you try and stop yourself from going down this river. Whereas when we flow with the river and we allow and we are open to and we accept, we get to where life is taking us whole and not broken into pieces and hurt by and bruised by what we've experienced a little upstream, if I can call it that.
How now do we best manage this fear, whether it's manifesting itself as resistance or as clinging? What are the best ways to manage it?
Well, the best way is to firstly acknowledge it. Because many times we're not conscious of the fact that we are either clinging to something, holding on, or controlling an outcome and saying, but it must happen in this way. I'm clinging to the outcome of the situation. Many times we're so on this clinging thing that we don't realize how deep we are in it, and we don't see it for what it is. So we just keep on living that life. The first thing is to become conscious of it and asking myself, am I clinging to this outcome? When we feel pain, frustration, unhappiness, when we become aware of anxiety, we need to ask ourselves the question, what am I clinging to? The same with resistance. When I am facing one wall after the other, when I'm feeling like things are happening and I feel helpless, for instance, I can ask myself, what am I resisting? The whole concept of clinging and resisting can be overcome by knowing that I'm always safe and secure and being cared for. That is who I am. And I rely on myself for that. I'm reliant on the fact that I make myself safe and secure. And I know that in this world, I am loved and cared for. And that is a different place to move from. Then I don't need to cling. I don't need to resist. I can just be and let life happen to me and choose my path with the flow and not cling to something or resist and have the pain that accompanies that.
In the next part of our program, we speak to someone who chose not to cling to the status quo or resist the changes in his career, as Lily has so eloquently advised. Join us after the break to find out how embracing the next stage has worked out for him. There are many signs that point to a coming of age. For a country, growth is unquestionably linked to its level of exports, be it in goods, services, or human capital. With a keen national focus on the education and training of its labor force, the country is now witnessing interest in yet another of its stellar resources, its people. Whereas in the past, professionals from outside the country were brought in to steer organizations, it appears we are at a stage where more Botswana are spearheading projects locally and at a level where they can now be change agents at an international level. A recent example of this phenomenon is the appointment of a man who enjoyed the limelight as Chief Financial Officer at one of the leading commercial banks. A few months ago, he was assigned the role of Director of Product Houses. Now he is in Swaziland as Chief Executive Officer. We caught up with our guest tonight, Mr. Stephen Bogatsu, before his departure to get an understanding of what was going through his mind as he prepared to embark on this momentous journey of being the CEO of First National Bank in Swaziland.
Good evening, Mr. Bogatsu.
Hi, Nametsa, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm all right, thanks.
So how do you feel now that nationally we're now at a point where we're ready to export skilled personnel, professionals like yourself? Yes, how do you feel about this whole move?
It's important as a country. We play in the global village. It's important that as a people we subscribe to the notion of transfer of skills or sharing of skills and cross-pollination of ideas. So from that perspective, I am excited that Botswana are now able, or actually Botswana have always been able to go outside the country But it's important that as we have people coming into our country to share their ideas and skills, we are doing the same, because quite frankly there are areas where as Botswana we are excelling, and it's a good opportunity for us to show the rest of the world what we are capable of as well.
On that note, how do you feel about the level of resistance sometimes exhibited by Botswana with having expatriates being appointed to some of the top level positions?
When you take or expand on that notion of knowledge sharing and skills transfer, then it's important that Botswana go out to other countries to learn new ways of doing things, and they bring them back into the country. It's also important that expatriates come to this country and share their ideas, and they take whatever learnings they can from Botswana and share those skills or those learnings with where they are coming from. The problem, of course, lies when short contracts that were initially intended to be short become very long-term. Because from that perspective, when you consider the notion of infusion of new ideas, then it becomes lost when somebody's mind becomes localized because they have been in the local environment for too long. From that perspective, they are no longer infusing any new ideas into their thinking, ideas that are unavailable locally.
I would have thought getting localized would be an advantage. So now moving on to you, what would you say your focus in the first crucial 100 days as CEO are going to be?
FNB Swaziland is part of a larger group, the First Rand Group. The business is intact, it's running very well. There is no need for me to go there and start shaking things up, turning it upside down. There's absolutely no need for that. So the intention for me is to go there and start building blocks, just continue building blocks for continuity. There will be changes here and there, but there should not be any drastic changes.
How have you prepared yourself for especially the cultural differences that you are inclined to face in your move?
Swaziland is in Africa. It's in Southern Africa. Therefore, from a cultural perspective, they are not, we don't have too many differences. However, it's important when you acclimatize into any new environment that you understand the people better and you respect them. You know, the concept of Boto works in any culture that you can think of, and that's a culture or a concept that is there in Botswana. So for as long as I respect the people and I respect their culture, I don't think we'll have any problems getting along. There are lots of things that we have done extremely well in Botswana that we will share with Swaziland. And similarly, I'm sure there are lots of things that Swaziland is doing extremely well, which will be brought back to Botswana.
We all wish to someday be less dependent on our monthly paycheck. And this next segment teaches us a legitimate way to achieving this type of financial freedom. This is the fourth installment in our invaluable series covering the fundamentals of investing in stocks. And if you are unfortunate enough to have missed the first 3 conversations, feel free to review previous advice on our YouTube page. This week, Thapelo Tseole of the Botswana Stock Exchange instructs us on the different financial tools we can use to get and maintain an investment mix that is secure enough to supplement our fixed income even into our golden years. What are bonds and how should one use them?
Bonds are considered to be more safer instruments. It is where a company comes to the stock exchange and wants to borrow money from people, investors. It can either be a company or government because there are corporate and government bonds. And it will get money from people and then pay them a fixed interest over a period of time. If it's a 10-year bond paying an interest of 8%, it will be paying them 8% of the money they've invested or they have borrowed the company for about 10 years, either on twice in a year or at the end of the year. And then at the end of the period of the bond, like 10 years, you get the principal amount you invested in a bond. Unlike in an equity. In an equity, we earlier on said, you are not 100% sure of the return that you are going to get. The return might be more or might be less. But with bonds, the returns are fixed. And also you get your principal return at the end of the bond period, at maturity. But where equities, unlike bond, equities don't mature. When you don't want to be a shareholder in a company, you only sell your shares in the market. That is when you get out. But with a bond have got a life. It ends at a certain time.
We've discussed shares or equities and bonds. What other investment packages or tools are out there for me?
The BSE also have what we call exchange traded funds. Exchange traded funds is where we group a number of companies together, and then after we group this number of companies together as a basket, we sell them as one share. For example, the present ETF where we have top 40 companies in South Africa, in JSE, grouped together to trade as one share. When you come to the BSE to buy 1 unit of ETF at a cost of, say, 36 Puda, we have actually bought shares of about 40 companies. So that is what an ETF is. And it will also can track a commodity, like the present ETF called New Gold. When you come to the BSE to buy a unit of New Gold, what we have actually bought is the real gold itself. We have bought a piece of an ounce of a gold, and therefore you own gold. And therefore when you want to sell this piece of, you are actually selling gold. So the price normally follows or tracks the price of gold in the world market.
Are there any benefits to investing in an ETF over a single equity?
Yeah, there are several benefits. The first benefit is that an ETF is a diversified portfolio of shares. And in investment, when you have a diversified portfolio, when you have a number of stocks, that is what diversification means. When you have a number of stocks, you actually reduces the risks of prices going up and down. And therefore, unlike a single share, when you are buying one company, in an ETF, you buy a number of companies. And therefore, you're going to get a number of benefits from these companies. Like all these companies, when they pay dividends, you actually get dividends from all these companies. And then these companies also belong to different sectors. When a different sector is performing better than the other sector, you are likely to benefit from that particular sector. Unlike when you buy a single share from a not performing sector, you are likely to lose because you bought that particular sector alone. So these are one of the diversification of an ETF. And also an ETF tracks a market. Like the top 40 ETF that we have here, it tracks top 40 companies in JSE. And therefore, when the market moves up, it also moves up. When the market moves down, it also moves down on aggregate. Unlike a single share, whereby you'll find that the market might be moving up and that particular share might be moving down. But there is also an advantage in holding a single share because the single share might be moving up while the market is moving down.
As a person about to retire, how do I diversify and get the right investment mix?
Normally when we are about to retire, you need instruments that are less risky. And when you are about to retire, shares are not normally a best way to invest your money because you need certainty in the older years of your life. And therefore, bonds will be the more preferred instruments because you are certain on the return that you are going to get on what you are buying and also on the instrument itself. Because with shares, when a company collapses, you lose everything. You can actually come up with zero, with nothing. And therefore, it will be nice to buy bonds because with bonds, they are less riskier than shares. But then the share market is more skewed towards the younger generation or the mid-generation. Those are the ones who can actively participate in the share market. But there are other people who are in the retirement age who only just reduces their risk in shares and not buy more shares but buy less portfolio of shares.
Now that we have a better understanding of shares and how to track them, could you tell us if there are any tools out there to help our lives easier in doing this?
Yeah, normally what you look at in the share market, start off looking at the general performance of the market, like the domestic company index, which basically shows you the overall performance of the market. And then look at where the market might be going with the assistance of your broker. Because the good thing in our market is that a lot of information is still very free. You can go to your broker, get this information for free. They can do all that technical analysis and only advise you. And it's up to you to either decline the advice or take the advice. And then the other thing is that you can also ask the companies in terms of what are they intending to do. If you're already a shareholder, by attending meetings, ask the company about their strategy and you'll be told about everything that is happening in the company going forward. And therefore, you are likely to have enough information about the potential that is in the company in order for you to make an informed decision on whether you want to buy shares in this particular company or not.
Still free? Does that mean in other places this information is not freely available?
Yeah, in other places, in other developed countries, you are likely to pay a fee for consultation. And also in our market, there are other financial consultants who are likely to charge you a consultation fee for giving you such information. So you are also free to consult them so that they give you professional advice. But you can also go to a broker who won't charge you to access this financial information.
How do I equip myself to formulate my own investment strategies without the assistance of a broker? You've mentioned the word broker quite a bit in our discussions. Could you tell us what is a broker? From me, Nameto Sibina, the team behind First Issues, and our sponsors First National Bank, we wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.